Shalom, shalom. So look, today we're going to be diving deep on, we're going to be on the fbi.gov page. And we're going to be looking at, what they already know. So I want y'all, take heed to this information that I'm going to give y'all. And then just think about what's happening now. So let's get to it. In 2017, it says DVE conducted 5 lethal attacks using bladed weapons, firearms, and vehicular ramming that resulted in the deaths of 8 individuals. Of those lethal incidents, RMVEs were responsible for 4 attacks, resulting in 7 deaths, and MVEs, a subset of the GAAVE threat category, conducted 1 attack, resulting in 1 death. Of the 4 attacks conducted by RMVEs and RMVEs imposing the superiority of white race, conducted 2 attacks, resulting in 2 deaths. And RMVEs who used racism or injustice in American society to justify their use of violence conducted the other 2 attacks, resulting in 5 deaths. Both the FBI and DHS continue to work with state and local law enforcement partners in matters related to domestic violence, extremeness, including thorough provision of strategic analysis of the threat, and enhance both independent and joint collaborative reporting, collection, and targeting efforts via human source and technical means. So they know what's going on, and this is 2017. A hate crime is a criminal offense that was motivated in a whole or in part by the offender's bias against a person, actual or perceived race / ethnicity or ancestry or national origin, gender or gender identity, religion, disability, or sexual orientation, and was committed against persons, property, or society. As defined by the FBI and DHS, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremism encompasses the potentially unlawful use or threat of force or violence in furtherance of... Okay, so if you pay attention to this article, it's going to break down, what the FBI, DHS, define, in anarchist violent extremism. That's the ideology that considers capitalism and centralized government to be unnecessary and oppressive. Then you have the militia violent extremism. That ideology, in response to perceived abuses of power by the government, especially in regard to suspected infringement on gun rights, excessive use of force by law enforcement, or bureaucratic incompetence in attending to critical tasks. Then you have the serene citizen violent extremism, the ideological agendas by those who identify as sovereign citizens. Sovereign citizens are U.S. citizens who claim to have special knowledge or heritage that renders them immune from the government authority and laws. So basically the point that I'm making is that the FBI, DHS, they already know who to pinpoint and who, the target audience that they need to, crack down on. It's no secret. There's no hidden agenda. This is something that they've been, doing research on, studying. They got a lot of data. So they got the information they need, and they know who they need to target. It's just a fact whether they act on it. So the top part of this article is important, but I want you to go down to where it started off talking about in 2019, because it tells you the primarily those advocating for the superiority of the white race likely will continue to be the most lethal threat to the homeland. Our agencies had high confidence in this assessment based on the demonstrated capability of RMVEs in 2019 to select weapon and targets to conduct attacks and the effectiveness of online RMVE messaging calling for increased violence. Additionally, other DVEs likely will continue to engage in non-lethal violence and other criminal activity. So this goes to show you that the FBI, Homeland Security, they already know they already know who's more likely to continue this, targeted sets of violence. But just like how our president want to bring troops to Chicago, troops to these Democratic states, but he's neglecting the fact that what's the real agenda. Like they know, so why not act on it? It's all a game. This is major too, because we see this in today's and DVE reactions to socio-political events and conditions could increase attacks. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk, my condolences. But you see, that event and what happened, and now you see increased attacks. And then, it goes to say this year, 2019, represented the most lethal year for DVE attacks since 1995, with 5 separate DVE attacks resulting in 32 deaths, 24 of which occurred during attacks conducted by RMVEs advocating for the superiority of white race. So the beginning of this, article, without apparent political solutions. Now, do we see that? Do we see any political solutions? I mean, I feel like we see it from some, parties, but some people, but not all. Without apparent political solutions, and hence violence action is needed to participate societal collapse to start a race war. Let's understand what societal collapse means. That usually means the breakdown of the structure that holds a society together. Government, economy, social order, and culture. Collapse can be sudden, like an empire falling due to an invasion. Environmental stress, drought, famine, and climate change, economic decline, debt, inflation, loss of trade, war, invasion, external enemies or internal civil war, corruption, and inequality. Elites exploiting resources while common people suffer. Loss of shared values / trust. When people stop believing in the institutions, cooperations. When people stop believing in the government. The Bible tells us, Proverbs 14:34, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Matthew 7:27 tells us, a house built on sand collapses when storms come. Without obedience to God's word, you're nothing. So now ask yourself, why is it the left and the right is so opposed to each other? Why is it a high of, I'm right, they wrong, or they right, I'm wrong? Why is it no solution? Why is it just back and forth? There's no working together. So now look at this. The propagation of acceleratism almost certainly would perpetrate the threat of RMVEs who impose the superiority of the white race. Political disagreements within the United States could present opportunities for DVEs to engage in violence against individuals perceived to have opposing ideologies. Prominent political or public figures or members of the media covering these events. And we see that today, don't we? It's a high rise in that. Okay, so I'm ready to show y'all a list of people that I'm getting directly from the fbi.gov. Like, there's no me targeting these people or I'm picking and choosing. This is on the fbi.gov. This is who I'm getting directly from their site. From the article that they listing, I'm getting it directly from them. So this ain't me race beating or, choosing, these people over than other people. This is directly from the FBI. This is David Ansbury, was arrested in October 2016 after placing an improvisative explosive device in the parking lot of the Netherland, Colorado Police Department, believing that law enforcement had murdered a member of a 1960s-70s counterculture group of which he had also been a member. He was indicted for use of a weapon of mass destruction. Ansbury pleaded guilty and in January 2019 was sentenced to serve 27 years in prison. This is the catch, though. On an appeal in 2020, a panel of the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals found that some of his enhancements used to lengthen his sentence, specifically terrorism enhancement and official victim enhancement, were not properly justified given what he admitted in his plea. As a result, in March 2022, a judge resentenced him to time served. And this is one of my points. We was just on the internet talking about the dude from the train, how he been let out, this and that. But look at this. This dude tried to blow up police officers. Not just one, many. And he got, 2019, 2021, that's what, like 3-4 years time served, and he got freed. This is Jerry Varnell, was arrested in August 2017 after trying to detonate an inoperable vehicle-borne explosive device at the Bannock First Building in downtown Oklahoma City to send an anti-government message. He was indicted for attempting to use a weapon of mass destruction and attempting to destroy by fire or explosive a property used in the interstate commerce. Varnell was convicted on both counts in February 2019 and in March 2020 was sentenced to serve 25 years in prison, followed by a lifetime term of supervised release. See, who we got here next is Cesar Sayux, and this is just a list of his criminal history. I just Googled his mugshots and this what popped up. But, I'm going to read from the FBI government page. Cesar Sayux was arrested in October 2018 for mailing 16 IEDs to 13 victims throughout the United States, including Democratic politicians and a media outlet. He was charged in the Southern District of New York with use of a weapon of mass destruction in violation of 18 USC, all them codes. Interstate transportation of explosive in violation, threatening interstate communications in violation of Article 18, illegal mailing of explosive in violation, and use of explosive to commit a felony in violation of 18 USC. Sayux pleaded guilty in March 2019 and in August 2019 was sentenced to serve 20 years in prison. Now, just based off of mailing 16 IEDs to 13 victims, including Democratic politicians, so he mailed some explosives to politicians. And even if it wasn't politicians, it's 13 victims. That should be life. No 20 years. That's life. Jared William Smith, Dylan Roof, and this is kind of, Roof is currently on federal death row at a maximum security prison. He continues to pursue appeals and no date has been set for his execution. So that don't make no sense. Do you need to was sentenced to be executed? Just get it done with. They keep waiting so you can appeal. They just waiting so everybody can forget. And then, yeah. Then you have they called themselves the Crusaders. 3 men were members of a small militia group known as the Crusaders. Anti-government people, Curtis Allen, Patrick Stan, Gavin Wright. Then one of the last on that list was James Alex Fields Jr. He was a neo-Nazi, white supremacist. I can't even say the word. But needless to say, the FBI, Homeland Security, they know who to target. They know who to, go after. It's no secret. So what needs to happen is, we need to be the president, the vice president. Everyone need to just stand on it instead of playing these games. Stand on it. We need to get rid of, that type of ideology. You can't just keep, letting people not be accounted for their actions, and it's just going to continue. And the FBI know that. They said it themselves. Like, you read them forms I posted, they said it themselves. And, this is where I got this information from. Like, I'm not trying to be biased or pick us up, like, be choosy. Like, it's just, it is what it is. And just keep in mind, when you hear the news, all these politicians talk about, oh, he was a left, oh, he was a right. Like, all that is just propaganda. Like, that's not what we need to be worrying about. What we need to be worrying about is season it. It doesn't matter what their thoughts was, because obviously that's part of the ideology of, these people. And when I say these people, I mean the people that's causing harm. Don't matter what race you are, but, the facts just line up to be what it is. So